Let's take a look at conditions on the land. Northland Te Tai Tokerau farmers are wrapped with a run of dry weather, which means they can get around the farm more easily. However, it has left the ground very rough due to pugging. One farmer near Whangarei tipped out about 80 millimetres of rainwater in October. He says spring has definitely sprung and the grass is growing. The ground has been sprayed for planting and there's plenty of silage being made. Mating has also started for the spring calves. In Pukekohe, growers are hoping for continuous days of fine weather to make the most of the growth period. They've been struggling with windy and showery conditions with low sunlight. And it's been very hard going for Waikato, where it's been wet and cold, with some farmers impacted by flooding of the Waipa and Awakino rivers. It's meant maize is running about a week behind and silage isn't being cut. Tight feed conditions mean cow condition for some has dropped, with the milk production peak likely past. The high price of cows is also making it harder for those wanting to go share milking. Our dairy consultant in the region says farmers voting overwhelmingly in support of Fonterra's consumer brand sale to French company Lactalis is an astounding result.
There's a lot of activity on Bay of Plenty kiwi fruit and avocado orchards. Kiwi fruit are at full bloom and there's a lot of bees being moved about. An exciting time. Bud burst has been variable, but it means there'll be less need to thin vines. Some growers who've been in the game since the 1970s says it's never been better. There are great yields and great returns. Zespri also celebrated a milestone, winning its case in China against two growers that planted and sold more than 200 hectares of Gold 3 without the plant variety rights. It's been hard work for Taranaki dairy farmers with very unsettled spring weather and lots of wind. Per cow milk production has dropped back in the past 2 weeks and it's been tough for those in the middle of mating. Grass hasn't got any guts, meaning it's watery and has low dry matter rates. There's a lot of silage ready to be harvested, but with contractors 2 weeks behind, it's a bit of a juggle, also trying to get maize and turnips into the ground.
East Coast Te Tai Rāwhiti has also had a heck of a lot of wind and plenty of rain, though it's been variable across the region. Some have had 30 mils, while others under the ranges up to 80. Farmers are getting very nervous though, as the wind has wicked away the soil moisture and conditions are getting quite dry. Most Hawke's Bay farmers escaped the worst of the wild weather, but are also eager for some rain. One farmer trading cattle near Tikakino says wind damage created about 2 months extra work, but more concerning was that rainfall was 400 millimetres below average, prompting him to get rid of a lot of stock. Prices are exceptional though, so the mood is still positive. Farmers are behind on grass growth and dams are getting very low. Strong winds also fanned several bushfires in central Hawke's Bay, which have been brought under control, but it serves as a reminder of the dangers.
It's been a frustrating month for Manawatu farmers, also battling wind and rubbish weather. One farmer was in full winter gear this week. Most have got just enough grass. Paddocks have been ploughed and sprayed, but they can't get crops into the ground or cut the silage with such bad weather. It's also put docking, or tailing if you're in the South Island, well behind and means farmers are dealing with heavier lambs when they do get to it. Wairarapa has been blown away with varying degrees of wind damage across the region. There's a fair bit of fencing work to be done after last week's intense winds, but on the plus side, firewood for the next 2 years is sorted. Grass is ticking along for most, for others it's been too wet or too dry. Farmers have been busy with docking, cutting silage and putting in summer crops, though some have struggled to get their tractors on farm with ground conditions too wet.
It's been a very difficult month for Horowhenua growers, with lots of rain and cold weather. One grower recorded over 100 millimetres of rain, about half of which fell over the Labour weekend alone. He's just sown the zucchini, but it's struggling to get out of the ground, with soil temperatures not quite warm enough. He reckons most crops are about 10 days behind and badly need some sunshine. Supermarket pricing has also come back, which is tough for growers. Moving south to Tasman, Te Tai o Aorere, there's been more trees lost in recent wet and windy conditions. One forester has lost about 1,000 hectares of trees, on top of the 6,000 hectares lost in storms earlier this year, from which much of the region is still recovering. The weather is holding up contractors, with baling yet to start. There's been fresh snow on the mountains the past few days, which is also slowing grass growth. Stock aren't doing too bad though, with feed levels just okay.
Budburst has kicked off on vineyards in Marlborough, Te Tauihu o Te Waka, and things are ramping up, with one grower busy thinning his Pinot Noir grapes when we called. He says there's been plenty of wind and crazy weather, which means they've had to wait to get the fungicide spraying done. The wind has also dried everything out, and there's a need for good rain to get things growing. Temperatures have been quite mild though, so no need for the frost fans this week at least. On farm, tailing is finished and most are into mating. Our West Coast contact says he's only seen 2 days of sun this past month and somewhere between 300 and 400 millimetres of rain. Cow condition is light and milk production has been dropping. He says the focus is keeping cows fed, with lots of supplementary feed coming in over the hill, and mating with his herd set to start next week.
Canterbury Waitaha farmers have been hit on all fronts: wind, rain, snow and dry conditions. Strong winds this past week have caused millions of dollars worth of damage to hundreds of pivot irrigators. A North Canterbury farmer feels lucky to have escaped the worst of the winds, but said neighbouring Culverden was hit really hard. He, meanwhile, would very much like some rain, especially with tailing, crutching and shearing underway. Meanwhile, some in South Canterbury are worried there may be lamb losses after this week's heavy blanket of snow. Otago farmers also face a massive clean-up after being battered by strong winds. What was looking to be a good financial season is now down a couple of $100,000 for those around Clutha, as insurance payouts will only cover a fraction of the damage. One farmer says he's never seen anything like the 220 km/h winds he experienced. He's just finished tailing, but feels other jobs are getting behind. Crops should be going in the ground and pasture growth is down. He says farmers are managing, but it will be tough.
And the clean-up continues in Murihiku, Southland. A farmer near Lumsden says fallen trees damaged power lines, fences and infrastructure. He says the clean-up effort will have to wait for many though, as it's a busy time on farm. Power outages mean hundreds of dairy farmers have been relying on generators to keep milking. Another farmer near Edendale says it's been another bad spring and farmers are fatigued by the most recent weather disruptions. He says the grass situation is not good, as it's pretty wet underfoot. There's a backlog with contractors, and cultivation is behind.